Good evening. Welcome to the Steelers Sanctuary Podcast. I am Leanne Lohman, joined tonight by Bob Quinn, Zach Franciscus, and David Corbin. We're here to preview the upcoming Week 14 rematch against the Cleveland Browns. We're certainly hoping the weather is better. We're hoping that defense plays better. We're hoping our offense plays better. I think we're all hoping the whole thing is better. We have just a few minor news items to get into before we start talking about the preview of the game. I saw today that Calvin Austin III was a full participant in practice, according to Rich Walsh from KDKA. He said that seems to be good news for Sunday, although I guess that's not still a guarantee, and we should know more tomorrow. Corey Trice was also activated off the injured reserve, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out when he starts playing again. And Alex Highsmith supposedly is hopeful to return this Sunday against the Browns. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. I know there was talk about him coming back last week for the Bengals, and then he wasn't quite able to. I saw an interview with him from the other day where he said, the hard thing is his plant foot, the one he pushes off on. And so that's made this recovery, take a little bit longer. He wants to make sure he's 100%. He doesn't want to re-injure it. So, guys, how are you feeling? What are you thinking heading into this game against the Browns? Zach, start us off. What are your thoughts?
Well, right before I came on here, I was on the Total Apex podcast, and I talked a very, very big game. I just want everybody to know. So the Steelers better back it up. I said that, I said before the Bengals game, the Browns game was an aberration, that I was trusting the Steelers to do that I'm still calling them contenders. So it scares me how confident I am right now. I'm not used to feeling like I do right now. And it's a scary kind of confidence. I don't know if you guys feel the same thing.
Are we going to call you like Zach Pickens because you're out there writing checks the Steelers can't cash? How you feeling, Bob?
I mean, I'm feeling that this is a vengeance opportunity. It's always weird when you go against Jameis Winston because you never know what you're going to get. Just like on the Broncos game on Monday, you got the good Jameis and the bad Jameis, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. We didn't get the bad Jameis at all, except for the one kind of where he threw it to Dante Jackson, and then we didn't close the deal. So I'm interested to see, okay, now if the weather's good and, now they're one-on-one with Pickens, if they try to play that way, how's it going to work? I'm interested to see where the offense is against a slightly better defense. The Browns haven't had a great year on defense, but they do have Myles Garrett and a couple of nice pieces. So I want to see progress, and I think it's imperative that we win the game.
Yeah. David, what about you?
Yeah, I just we should know what they're going to do. We know they're going to bring the pressure. So I'm hoping that they're more prepared for it this time than they were last time. So yeah. I do feel better about this game since it is at home. And I guess the weather's supposed to be better. I guess we just talked about that in prep. So I feel better about their chances this time for sure.
Yeah, when I looked up the weather yesterday, they're talking like this is still the forecast, like 50 degrees and no precipitation is what it was when I checked yesterday for an article. So if it stays in that neighborhood, that's pretty favorable. I feel like hopefully the Steelers shouldn't be surprised this time. And I really hope they're angry enough that this is like an absolute bloodletting for this game because, we just, I don't know, need to put the Browns like back in their place. So let's break it down. We'll talk some about offense and then talk about defense and then whatever other thoughts we have about the game. So what does success against this Browns team look like? I think these Browns are scary. It's the reason they were scary in the snow because they have nothing to lose. And so what does success against this team look like, Bob?
Well, I mean, it was their Super Bowl to play against, and I've heard this a lot all week. You can't win the Super Bowl twice. So the likelihood is in front of their home fans, they laid it out, they had some weather assist, and it was all well and good. And then the season for them basically ended in Denver. So, they're always going to get up for us and play us tough. Myles Garrett will be all juiced up and everything. But I think as long as we have a plan to limit, what kind of impact he can have on the game, I think success is, holding the ball, winning time of possession, in the 35 to 40 minute range over the Browns. And then, the points coming off of that, I think, we saw last time we can score. We just took a half to get going. So I want to see us start a little bit faster like we did in Cincinnati. If that becomes a trend, we do it 2 games in a row. Now, all of a sudden, 24, 27 points, maybe more. But if it's a ball control, not just running the ball and hoping on third down, kind of the same plan as the Bengals, maybe a little bit more conservative. I also think we're going to see Pat have a big game as well. So success, I'm looking for ball control, converting third downs, holding on to it, and scoring the appropriate amount of points and not giving Jameis 10 chances.
For me, it's basically, can we see at least a little bit of what we saw from Russell Wilson this last game against the Bengals? That 125 passer rating was fucking amazing.
Right.
I would love to see more of that. The O-line did better last game, so let's see them continue that trend, doing better this game against the Browns team. Had 4 sacks against them, tons of pressures on Russell Wilson. So to me, if we win and they have a better stat sheet this time, would be a successful win. In general, I just want them to fucking win. I don't care how they do it. Just win. Just win, baby. That's all I really care about. But as far as successful, I want to see the guys that struggled against the Browns last game have a great game this time. That's what especially like the Steelers secondary. That's another thing I'll get into too. But just in general, I just want to see the people that struggled last time against them have some more success this time.
No regression. Yep. That's a big thing. A win, and I think a double-digit win isn't too much to ask for. But I'm going to look at all points of the board because it seemed like everyone took a big step forward and said that Cleveland game didn't count. Don't look at that. Here's who we really are. And we need to see it again. Because if not, that asterisk for that Bengals game is going to get bigger. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. John says expand the playbook and continue to make future opponents look at their tape in confusion. I'd like to see that too. I know I talked about this on the show a while ago. I forget who said it now, but somebody said he felt like they were holding, things in reserve, waiting to unleash it in this last part of the season. So, I don't think it's unreasonable to unleash some of that against the Browns this week, considering we lost. David, what happens if we lose? Can the Steelers afford another loss against the Browns?
They can't afford a loss to the Browns or the Bengals. They can afford one to these better teams like the Chiefs or the Eagles or even at Ravens. But against teams that have losing records like the Browns, who are shit, really, let's be honest, they can't afford to lose to them or to lose to the Bengals, who are also shit, let's be honest, minus their offense.
Right.
So, no, they can't afford a loss to the Browns. They can beat one of those other really top teams in the AFC and the Eagles as well, but it can't be to the Browns, no.
Yeah. Yeah, Vaughn agrees. He said that we can't afford to lose that game because the 3 games in 10 days stretch that's coming up is cruel and unusual punishment. I think that's a really good point. I mean, we've been saying it all season, even before the season started with that supposedly earlier first part of the season, need to stack wins wherever we could.
Yeah,
what happens if we lose? Can we afford to lose?
We can. I'm kind of with David there. I don't know if we can afford to lose this particular one. The Bengals game is an asterisk on it for me, because I don't know. I'm hoping to have everything wrapped up by then, and maybe we sit a bunch of people, so I don't think that's going to count as much. But like I said, the confidence I have is scaring me. I'm not used to this. I'm used to going into these games being nervous and all this, and I don't like what I'm feeling inside, because I genuinely feel we can go in and make it so these questions don't have to be asked, and put things aside and show people that we beat the teams we're supposed to.
If we can't, what does it say about us for like these tough teams? You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say it's a must-win when you got a 2-game lead in the division, because technically you could lose the game and then there's still games left to work it out. But if you want to win the division, if you want to have an outside chance at the number 1 seed, because the Chiefs play the Chargers this week, and that is by far the best team they played in a while. So could they get up for that, or could they have, if they play like they did against the Raiders and the Panthers, the Chargers are going to blow them out. So I'm interested to see what happens there. So if the Chargers lose, let's say the Bills lose maybe one more game, then all of a sudden we have a chance. But we drop this game to the Browns, it's over. I still think we could win the division, but when we did our predictions a week ago before the Bengals game about how we thought the Steelers would finish with David and Dave and I on legendary picks, I thought it was 4-2, and you can't drop the Cleveland Browns game and go 4-2 at this point. We need the Bengals game. We need we already got the one Bengals game. We get the Browns game. That's 3. Then we just got to win 1 out of 3. We've built a cushion, and preferably that game is Baltimore. If we beat Baltimore and Cleveland, we're winning the division. There's no
division. Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what happens in Kansas City and Philly. It matters to me how we play, but it doesn't matter from the divisional standpoint.
Right. So we saw that, the offensive line struggled, man. They struggled in that last Browns game. But it's also, I struggle with the weather component because, look, they were playing in the shitty weather too. It's not like their side of the field wasn't snowy or slippery or whatever. So I struggle with a little bit with the weather excuse, but the offensive line struggled. Then we saw them really come back against the Bengals. And, Broderick Jones had arguably one of his best games of the season. Dan Moore looked really good. As a whole, the offensive line looked really good. What do you expect to see from them this week, Zach? Do you think we'll see what we saw last time? You think we'll see what we saw from the Bengals?
What I hope is I don't want to see what I believe was either laziness, arrogance, not prepping for it or whatever. Those weak chips on Myles Garrett, the way we didn't look prepared for him. This has to be different. So because if Myles Garrett is going to wreck this game again, I want us to make it as hard for him to do it as possible because we really made it really easy. So that pass protection specifically with him and who we bring over, because I think it's worth sacrificing a Darnell Washington on that play or a Jalen Warren on that play if they're legitimately going to try and block him, not the half-hearted shoulder and then Dan Moore's one-on-one.
Right.
Very. I think the offensive line I think it's been a work in progress all year. These are young guys. If you take out Isaac Seumalo, I think the average age is 14 on the offensive line. They're extremely young. Mason McCormick, he has a good game, he has a bad game. Zach Frazier has a good game, then he thinks he's a tight end. Broderick, he's played a lot better, and he's reminding people why he's a first-round draft pick. At this point, if their best football is ahead, and it's almost got to be at this point because they couldn't play worse. So I think if the best football is ahead, this team will get progressively better at the right time of the year. It's not going to be the Unleash Hell Steelers in December, but if this offense over the next month continues to progress, continues to give protection. I don't know how much better they're going to block for the run. I want to see if they can go a little bit deeper in the pass or a little better in the pass protection. I'm also curious to see how it interfaces with Justin Fields. Is the wrinkle, going to be that all of a sudden we're going to have Justin Fields in the game and the offensive line is going to do that RPO block and somebody tie Zach Frazier's shoelaces to Justin Fields for, the beginning of the play, then all of a sudden, are we seeing an RPO? Are we seeing a couple shots down the field, which I do kind of want to see. I think we're saving that for Philly and Kansas City, but I would like to see something where, okay, let's legit let Fields throw the ball on one of these come-in packages. Now, shouldn't be too much because until Russell Wilson cools off, you got to ride the hot hand. He's on fire, so let's throw the ball. I don't want to see them go into a shell against the Browns.
Yeah, my thing with the O-line is that I'm hoping to see what we saw the other day. Only gave up 2 sacks as opposed to the 4 they gave up against the Browns. But you have to remember, against the Bengals, they lost Rankins. He had to get replaced by Jenkins. So then Jenkins got hurt. So they were facing like a third-string defensive tackle up the middle. So they definitely had a lot easier matchup against the Bengals with that D-line as opposed to this D-line when you've got Garrett, Tomlinson, Harris, and McGuire. That's a lot more formidable D-line they're going to be facing this week. So do I think they'll do better? Yes, because I think they're more prepared to know what they're going to face. But at the same time, do I think they're going to do what they did against the Bengals? No. I think it won't be as bad as the Browns game, but it won't be as good as the Bengals game either.
Yeah. You'll be relieved to know that Relic has shown up to the party. So thank you.
Hey,
Yep,
I was
$10
trying to
fine
figure
for
out
being late. Just
Right,
kidding.
right.
Just-
A couple other comments. Greg brings up that the O-line is peaked this time of year for the last few years.
that's
so is he
true.
saying this is so is he wait, is he saying that we've reached the peak and it's downhill, or this is where, like, are we going to plateau and this is where the O-line really is?
I think
I
it's
think
wanna-
he's meaning that they tend to get better
I'll
late
take that.
in the
I like
year,
that.
which
Yeah.
I'll co-sign. I'm not co-signing that we peaked. And Yinzer said that they were surprised because Moore usually plays him well, and I'm assuming they mean Garrett. We're going to talk about him next. That popped in. And then John added that we really need to beat Kansas City, the Eagles, or both for their playoff psyche. And I think we'll talk about that more as the season goes on, especially as we get closer to those games. I mean, it's an interesting position to be in when, like maybe with the Eagles, in theory, you don't have to win that game, to get where you need to go in the playoffs. But, that's a big monkey on our back. And Vaughn agrees that, Moore historically has done well against him, meaning Garrett. This time around, I think we see a healthy dose of Washington, who's a de facto left tackle. So let's talk about that, Bob. How do they deal with Garrett this time? I mean, is it that Garrett figured out Dan Moore's number and so Moore wasn't effective this time? Was it that Moore just had a bad day, or the whole O-line had a bad day?
Well, if you believe Pro Football Focus, and I don't, but they do put out the pass rush, whatever statistic that they made up for Garrett. They've always maintained that Dan Moore does not do well against Myles Garrett. He's always
says something totally different.
Yeah.
No, I don't know it because there is some legitimacy to they slide the quarterback away from Garrett, make it harder for him to get to. I don't know. I mean, bottom line is he didn't produce any sacks. I don't know if the eye test says he dominated him. It just said,
I don't know if it's dominated, but I mean, with a guy as good as Garrett, if you control that to some degree or minimize his impact, I mean, to me, that's about what you can ask for. Nobody can shut TJ down usually unless you put 3 guys on him.
Yeah, but Garrett tends to disappear for stretches in the season. So I don't. And if you want to go by that logic, then TJ, and I don't buy that TJ's having a bad year, but I know some of us do because he's not producing sacks. So all of a sudden, because he's not producing sacks, he's not affecting the game. I don't necessarily believe that. I think Dan Moore has played him passable. I mean, he hasn't let him wreck the game. Last time we played a couple of weeks ago in the snow, technically Myles Garrett wrecked the game. If he doesn't cause that fumble, we probably win that game by 5 or 6 points.
Yeah.
But if that fumble, that was big. It put us down 12, kind of changed the complexion of the game. I think the best way to play Garrett, because he's going to move all around, is just try to let Jalen pick him up. I like the idea of we'll try to get you one-on-one at the line and Jalen pick it up. Darnell chipping him. I mean, at this point, Darnell is one of our better weapons in the passing game. I don't know that I want him staying in at this point because especially, against smaller linebackers that Cleveland has. So I may want him to go down the field. A chip from Pat, that's half-hearted. That's worthless. Not to mention the fact Pat is playing really well the last 2 games. I definitely want him out in the pattern. I think Jalen, he could demoralize Myles Garrett let him come through the line and let Jalen tattoo him one time. He may get run over, but if he doesn't, if he stones him, Garrett's the kind of guy who could just fold up the tent for the rest of the day. So that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see a one-on-one with Jalen just sitting there waiting, saying, okay, come on, and then just nail him because that's what Jalen's best at, to be honest with you. I mean, I love his screen game. I love his running. But bottom line is he made the team because of pass protection. He is our best pass protector. I want to see him hit Garrett.
As far as what you two were saying, I get what both of you are saying. Leanne, like stat-wise, you're right. A lot of different times, Garrett has not really put a lot of stats in the box, right? Whenever he's went against Moore. But Bob, I get what you're saying with the pass win rate. Yeah, but for me personally, they need to give Garrett the TJ Watt treatment. And that is, you don't chip. You put that fucking tight end over there, period. He's going to face two guys the whole damn game until your scheme or something in the game calls for you to change some things up a little bit. Or if you're going to run a different, they have to give him the TJ Watt treatment, have two people at all times blocking him. Also, Russell Wilson has to be cognizant of his left side. Like, don't start floating towards that way because you're looking for trouble. Because that's what's kind of happened in that strip, right? Is what he floated up towards Garrett, and it was over. And the other guy, as you saw on Hard Knocks, actually put his hand there too. I can't remember if that was McGuire or who that was, but dude, you can't be floating out there towards the guy's going to have the biggest impact in the game for them.
Yeah,
and that's another thing I'm hoping that we saw progress that is going to carry into this game, and that was Russell Wilson's pocket awareness was on key. He every time the offensive line didn't have his back, he knew where to go. That roll out, throw to Pat was just. I mean, that was something I didn't think we were going to see from Russell Wilson this year. So if he can just bring a little bit of that, then I think we'll be okay. Because we gotta. I agree. Maybe if not the full TJ Watt method, just have someone act like Garrett's over there. It's like we legitimately didn't even care that Garrett was over there half the time. So I just want us to play like we actually prepared for the game. So I mean, mix it up as well, however you want, but just act like, I'm on. Act like you actually know who you're playing against, because that disappointed me last game.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I
Big
don't
Poppy
know.
said, how important will it be successful running the ball, and will that help neutralize Garrett some?
Yes.
Screen game, too.
Well, and the other thing, too, is, okay, so Garrett likes to kind of rush a little wide. Not quite as wide as TJ, but he's not – he had a couple stunts the last game where he came up the middle, but most of the time he's wanting to run wide. So I don't want to see that toss, because you toss it to Garrett's side, you're going to get the running back killed, and that's not going to go anywhere. Correct. But if you let him kind of come up the field and maybe do, just a little bit of a delay and let that hole open up, Najee and Jalen and we're going to see Cordarrelle Patterson, of course, those guys might be able to eat with a wide open gap there where Garrett should be, as long as they can, take care of the tackles for Cleveland.
Relic says that he thinks there's zero chance that Mike Tomlin is going to lose again. He's going to have a way to stop Garrett this game. Won't allow another Garrett fumble. I don't know. I watched that Hard Knocks show, and I believe Mike Tomlin could do anything. I'm ready to give the man a kidney if he needs one. Whatever he needs, man. I love him even more than I did before, if that was possible. Charlotte chimed in and said, Russ has to get off the ball a little bit quicker as well. She said it's exhausting to watch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's his thing.
I thought he did a good job of that in the Bengals game.
Yeah,
the
Bengals game.
What? Yeah, that was my point. We need to see more of that. I want to see more of that from Russell. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Washington's a monster. Got to give him up in the passing game to help on Myles Garrett.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I think you have a very short window to see. If you want to put him one-on-one, then sure, give it like a couple plays. See how Dan Moore looks. If there's any unsureness at all about that, then you start sliding those guys over. But if that's what you need to see, maybe because you don't want to take it away from Dan Moore, and however you have to do it, but just be smart. That's all. Just smart, please.
Yeah.
So let's talk.
Even if you chip him there with Darnell, okay, or it looks like he's double teaming, let him beat it. After a second, give Russell time to set up, but then just let him beat it. Let him go and float Darnell out to the side. I don't think they'd be expecting Darnell not even 1-2 yards down the field. I don't think they'd be expecting that throw. And then all he's got to do is take 3 steps and fall forward, and he gets 10 yards.
Yeah,
that's a good point. And we've done that, like that specific play, like 2 or 3 times. No, it wasn't the Garrett side, and I don't think it was the Bronze, but I know what play you're talking about. It's in Arthur Smith's arsenal, so he has it in his pocket. So I
I
like
think
that.
they
Good
see
point.
Jalen or Cordarrelle and everybody attacks because they know, okay, he chipped, but he's going out for we're going to go attack that. I don't think they would attack Darnell as aggressively there because I don't think they would buy. I think they would think, hey, he just got beat, which
I forget
let's
who it
be
was
honest.
from the Bengals. He saw Darnell had that ball and he just fell to the ground. He was like, I don't want any part of that. Whoops, my bad. Play dead.
Yeah.
And I know today Arthur Smith actually, I think Kabbalah talked about it, and a couple of people talked about it, that Arthur Smith is starting to open up the playbook a little bit more, but not just that, get creative, because guys that are normally out there just for runs, like number 15, because if I try to say his name, I think is it Skronik? Am I going to get it? Because I think
Skowronek.
yeah. Skowronek and Michael Pruitt and all. He
You
said
said I can't
throughout the
spell it.
season we've been using these guys in running situations. Now the guys that are in running situations are out there. The team assumes it's a run, and all of a sudden we're using it in passing. And yet again, another thing Matt Canada couldn't do. So this offense is progressing at the right time.
Connor's magic skill is recovering onside kicks. We saw that. He's got that talent down. I don't know about the
Wait
blocking.
a minute. Who's the one who has a crush on him?
Charlotte, my kid.
Yeah, well, that's his magic skill.
The
He's
ladies'
captured
man.
Charlotte's
Yeah.
heart.
I'm seriously gonna have a hard time being difficult with Connor now. I mean, good, that little bit, that Hard Knocks just
Right? Yeah, very likable. Very likable. They're a
Oh,
great
yeah.
family.
was.
Great
Yeah, if he
family.
could grow 2 or 3 inches, he could become a viable tight end. I'm
He's
pretty
young.
sure he's
He's
hit
young, too.
pretty sure he's hit his growth though. He's not going to get any taller.
No,
Probably
he's
not.
getting
I'd be
there.
surprised.
Yeah.
A growth spurt now.
So
Yeah.
let's talk real quick while we're talking about this offense and about kind of our other offensive problem child, and that's George Pickens. I think my biggest concern with Pickens is that, other defenses, other teams are going to look at the way the Bengals got under his skin and managed to get him out of control. I think it helps that we'll be at home, so at least he won't have the crowd taunting him and screaming at him like he did in Cincy. But how do you think he'll do this game against the Browns? Do you think that was like just a bad moment? Because I thought he was behaving pretty well most of this season until he kind of fell apart in Cincy. Do you think that was just a bad day for him? Do you think he'll bounce back? David, what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. Like, in that Browns game, they got in his head right off the bat. And you could tell, ripping guys' mouthpieces off and just doing stupid shit, right? And then you get in the Bengals game, and then that stuff happens with him there. The penalties, the one being a real stupid penalty, in my opinion. But here's the thing. The Browns gave up 100-plus yards to Mims and Sutton in Denver. Like, if he just keeps his head in there, and if we feed him the ball, he's going to go off and have a huge impact in this game. But when we faced them, he only had 48 yards receiving. And I think a lot of it, besides the weather, had to do with them being in his head. If he just gets his mind right and realizes, because that's what I loved about Hard Knocks too, was it showed, on that play where the interception happened. I mean, Tomlin right now reeled him in and said, get your act together. Don't let this affect you. We need you the rest of the game. This will not decide the game. Right. And I love that he did that.
And then he came back and caught that touchdown. So,
Right.
We watched that game. We didn't know what Tomlin said, but I remember saying to my husband, oh, look, Tomlin talked to him. Do you know what I mean? And he caught that touchdown. I'm like, okay, now he'll be okay. And then he wasn't.
Right. Well, I mean, he was definitely they were keeping their eyes on him way more than the rest of these officiating crews usually do. So it was just one of them freak games to me where they were definitely being watched. But if he just keeps his head in the game, he's going to go off this game. I think they really are going to try to get him even more involved, feed him, and move. Those two are my two guys they got to feed in the receiving game. But I think he can be very successful this game, a lot better than last time if he keeps his head in there.
I'm pretty sure last week was the first time he didn't lead the team in targets in a game. So Pat had 7, he had 6. I think I don't know that he had a bad game the penalties were stupid, but he had the nice bomb, he had the touchdown, he had another nice catch. He drew a penalty that got us points down by the goal line late in the game on one of his targets.
I only meant purely from a behavior perspective. Like, he's been all over the place with targets this season. I didn't mean in any gameplay way. I didn't think he played poorly.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were saying that, hey, maybe they got it. I think I think if they get in his head, first of all, I think he's super motivated to cook Newsom. He wants Newsom on him at all times in this game, and I guarantee you he's in Russell Wilson's ear saying, one-on-one, throw it to me. I guarantee I'll get it. So that being said, I don't think they should go out of their way to try to feature Pickens. He's already the feature guy. That if they're going to play some crazy weird thing on Pickens, then just do what happened in Cincinnati and what started to happen in the second half of the Cleveland game. Let Pat work. I mean, if we can get it, and honestly, even though I know that I want to see Pickens get the most targets because it's going to be good for the offense. If we can figure out over the next month to really establish Pat, what we didn't do the first half of the year, but now he's got 2 games in a row, 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row. If we can come into the playoffs where, hey, triple up Pickens, no problem. Pat's going to beat you. So if Pat can have a nice down the stretch here, 5-6 catches a game, 60, 70 yards, putting up touchdowns, which I think he can, then yeah, I'm totally okay with seeing, I would love to just see I think it was that movie Unnecessary Roughness or whatever with Sinbad and Jason Bateman and Scott Bakula way back in the day, where the guy went in motion and everybody went with him. I would love to see the Browns do something like that and just leave Pat and, whoever puts Skoranek out there, let Skoranek catch a touchdown.
Zach, what are you thinking?
I'm going to be watching very closely in this game because what I've seen is that the people around Pickens are doing everything that they can to not just control, but to make sure he feels like it's safe. Like he's in a position where he has a good support system. And I think it's not just about production. How does he respond to that going forward? Because I don't know if I want another Antonio Brown situation. And I know like every wide receiver is a diva, but not every wide receiver hurts a team on the field like he did to us last week. So I need to watch his attitude to see how he responds, all of that, because I got really, really worried when I watched the tape last week. The amount of times where plays had nothing to do with him and he was running over after the play was done directly to get into someone's face on the other team. Unnecessary stuff. It legitimately worried me. For the first time, seriously, I think in his career.
Relic says that as long as Pickens keeps his head and doesn't get into it with the cornerback from the Browns, they did fight at the end of the game. Roderick will not let Pickens lose his head.
I hope not.
And John brings up that Tomlin said the press conference 3 times that Pickens must mature. He said he has to grow up. I want to believe it's being addressed off camera. I'm sure it's being addressed, but, there's only so much that you can do. The old expression about leading the horse to water. You can't force somebody to behave. So,
Right.
We talked about this on the last show that if, Pickens doesn't want to do that, not Tomlin, not Broderick Jones, not anybody else can make him.
They need to get that guy a therapist or something.
Yeah.
It just hit me. Like, talk to somebody.
I think what would have really helped him is if we'd gotten in a stronger wide receiver, veteran wide receiver that really would have done that, taken him under his wing. And
yeah, we
just
gave
know
Deontay.
that the guys we have are those guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you believe Kaboli and some of the beat writers, though, that wouldn't affect him at all. They don't think Art Rooney could affect him. He's going to do what he's going to do. Yeah.
But I don't know. I disagree. I think that there's a difference between somebody coming at you in a punishing way, do you know what I mean, or a reprimanding way, and somebody coming at you as your peer and mentoring you. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
There's definitely a difference.
Yeah.
Someone in a position of authority compared to a peer talking to you. Yeah,
right.
I get what you're saying.
It's just a thought. I don't know. Relic also brings up that if Calvin plays, we have more touchdown strength up the middle. That he's been impressive. He's definitely been getting in the game more.
It's not just the one trick pony thing. He got beat up bad last game on plays that other receivers need to be able to take hits on. And I mean, he looked small. Like you saw his size comparison, and I'm worried about that because other than the one trick pony I'm worried about his longevity.
Yeah.
Teams are going to pick up that he's tiny. He's tiny. He's
little.
good. He's a good player. He's a tough kid, but I mean, bottom line is the Bengals just knocked him out of the game, and I don't think that's going to be the first or last time that happens. So,
I don't know if Relic thinks I dislike Claypool or if I dislike Pickens. I definitely don't dislike Pickens. I'm a huge Pickens fan.
No, I think he means Claypool.
Claypool. I actually didn't dislike Claypool. I liked him fine. I just thought he got kind of.
I liked him in his first season.
Yeah, kind of ineffective.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? I want to win games, and he wasn't there for us. Big Poppy brings up that it's a fine line to play with passion and being a hothead. It was good to see Tomlin, Cam Jones talking to him throughout the game. Just stay away from the knucklehead plays. Yeah, he confirmed it was Claypool. Yeah, I didn't have anything against Claypool. I just thought that he got.
And Arthur Smith also talked about whenever he was in Tennessee, and was it AJ Brown that was there? He said AJ Brown used to have a problem like that too. He liked to kick the ball into the end zone. He said he was going for the Ray Guy Award. That's what he said about AJ Brown.
It was a funny comment.
And remember, A.J. Brown is not cured. The money didn't cure A.J. Brown. Remember last year towards the end when Philly started to fall apart? A.J. Brown was a problem. There was talk they were going to have to separate him and Hurts, like get rid of Brown or get rid of Hurts, which you don't get rid of the quarterback, so that means the wide receiver. They worked it out, and so far it's copacetic, but you almost wonder if that's in the back of Philly's mind is, hey, what happens if we do stumble down the stretch? I don't think they will. It's not like last year, but I mean, Saquon, I think, is the great, hey, all we got to do is hand the ball to Saquon. Forget, if Hurts can't throw it, doesn't matter. We can just run Saquon.
Yeah. Sandra brings up that most pro teams have or should have a sports psychologist. I know there's one available for all the players. And
she knows what she's talking about.
They need to use
that's my aunt. So
do the work.
My aunt's a very respected child psychologist in Florida.
She
knows what she's talking about in that field. So they should have them there.
She need a job. I know where she can go.
Right. We got a child for you to psychologize if you want to head to Pittsburgh. So let's switch sides and talk about the defense a little bit. I think, we look at playing Jameis Winston again, and I think the thing that's concerning from my perspective about Winston is that he has nothing to lose. He's auditioning for a job, wherever that is, whether it's back with the Browns or with another team. He's had this weird career in the NFL, and on top of him having nothing to lose, the Browns have nothing to lose. So they're going to air the ball out against this defense. Zach, how do you see our defense? What do they need to do differently to contain Jameis this time?
They need to be as hard on themselves as appropriate for last week. I genuinely feel like it's a mulligan. That was what should be, like we talked about before, an MVP-like performance from Joe Burrow. That is a ridiculous talented offense there. But we need to shut these guys down. I mean, we need to maybe allow an opening drive touchdown, which, like I said, I normally expect Steelers defenses to give up in the first, one or two things. And after that, nothing. I want our defense to prove that we aren't just the defense that can hold the Cincinnati offense, that we can shut these guys down. That doesn't matter if it's Jameis, it doesn't matter what his fun pregame speech is or how much, everyone likes watching him. I want to make sure he does not get a chance to have another postgame speech.
Love that. What do you think, Bob?
I mean, look, bottom line is when you're playing Jameis Winston, they're going to throw the ball and score points. He threw for 400 yards against the Saints, and they lost by 21 points. I mean, he's just going to get yards. If you go into this thinking this is going to be some kind of 27-3 beatdown, unless he gets hurt, that's probably not going to happen. Now, it could be 27-10, and he threw 2 pick sixes along with everything else. But I just don't know that it's realistic that you're going to go into a game because he's going to just keep throwing. He don't care. He's going to throw it. I mean, he's going to keep putting the ball in Judy's hands. I think it'd be interesting if Tillman can't play. And I know he's upgraded to questionable, but that concussion was pretty nasty a couple of weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets on the field. I still don't think we have a great answer for Njoku. The good part is that Chubb is struggling. forward if they can keep the running game down. But then again, the Browns are going to go away from it. I mean, this isn't going to be a shootout like the Cincinnati game.
No.
But I do think we can't go into it. They put up 24 against us in the snow. I think Jameis is going to find a way to get 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think he's going to give us a touchdown. So I'll save my prediction to the end. But, I mean, I think realistically, it's an AFC North battle. This is not going to be a 13-10 kind of game. If it is, something really weird has happened.
For me, it's 2 things. One, they have to bring pressure. They didn't bring a lot of pressure on him the first time they faced him, and he cut him up. 2, stop the run. Denver only gave up 21 yards to Chubb. They forced that game into Winston's hands. Yes, like Bob said, he put up 400 yards, but he threw 2 touchdown passes to the opposite team. You have to force the game into Winston's hands. Yes, you're going to give yards, but you're also got a better chance at getting interceptions, turnovers, and he got sacked 3 times as well. So bring the pressure, force him to have to throw that ball under pressure, will get you turnovers, and 2, stop the run. That's the way I look at it. Watch the Denver game. You'll see what they did. The Steelers should probably take a note from that, honestly, and that's what I think they need to do.
And don't discount the impact having Highsmith back is going to be. I mean, even if he's, I don't think, didn't he specifically say that if it was absolutely necessary, he probably could have played earlier, but they really wanted to be careful with his ankle. So I think we're going to get a legitimately actual healthy trio for the first time since week 3 was the last time these guys were on the field together. And it's not as much about getting to Jameis. It's about Alex Highsmith's ability to shut down the run. That is what's going to matter, because if Alex Highsmith shuts down the run, then you bring in Herbig, and then you have TJ Watt. I really like how that could impact Jameis not having a run there.
I thought it was a huge mistake when they, like David was saying, with the pressure. I think they played him like they play Lamar Jackson to their detriment because it was a short week. He has some mobility. But he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Jaden Daniels. He's not that kind of mobile. I think you got to come after him like you came after Joe Burrow versus you go after Lamar Jackson. And I think they'll make that adjustment. I think there'll be a lot more pressure on him in this game.
Relic says he kind of really doesn't want to see Highsmith come back. He's been loving what Nick Herbig is doing. And I was going to say exactly what John says, which is that he thinks we'll see a lot of 3 OLBs. I think we'll see them rotating those guys in. I think when they have all 3, it allows TJ and Alex to play the proper number of snaps.
Oh, no doubt.
It works out much better. So I'm hoping that's more of what we'll see. So Bob, would you say that our defense has to have a big game? Is this a statement piece for our defense here?
I don't know that it's all relative in how we define it. I mean, does the defense need to play well? Of course they do, because we can't just go out and we don't want to play a shootout with the Cleveland Browns. Something has gone wrong if we play a shootout with the Cleveland Browns. But that being said, I think we got to look at how we define success. If Winston throws 300 yards and 2 interceptions and 4 touchdowns, and we win the game 38-28, then okay, so be it. I mean, would I like to see them hold them to 2 or 3 touchdowns? What I don't want to see, and this is what I'll be watching closely, I don't want to see long drives from Cleveland. If Jameis cooks us on a deep pass here and there, okay, I can live with it, as long as we're in control and winning the game. But those 8, 10, 12 plays where he's clicking along 10, 12, 4, 7, 8, now all of a sudden he's throwing a touchdown pass inside the 20. That's what I don't want to see. That's where I think we'll have played it badly. So, relative in a big game. I think if they hold these guys under 24 points, the defense has played pretty good.
Yeah, I think that basically the defense has to have a big game here. The last 2 games, they've been very, not very good, especially the secondary. I don't want to see any confusion in this game. That's what killed them in that game against the Browns. So I want to see them be on their A game, because the secondary has to be if they're going to apply a lot of pressure. Because if anything happens where they pick up that blitz or pick up the pressure, then the secondary better be in step with each other, because then Winston will make them pay. So that's my thing.
I like that. I forget, it was Kaboli or someone else wrote that the defense not always being the thing we can rely on might be the best thing to happen to this Steelers team, because we're learning that the offense can pick it up. And in the past, it's been about, oh, well, we know our offense can't beat them, but our defense can hold Patrick Mahomes, or our defense can hold Josh Allen. Now it's a little different. So I agree with Bob that it depends on how you see success, but I think this one really matters to the defense. I think holding them to one touchdown would mean a lot to this team. Getting Jameis Winston down a lot would mean a lot to this defense. So this defense has a lot of pride, and I think we're going to see that.
Yeah, I certainly hope Winston isn't thrown 4 touchdowns. So Bob mentioned earlier that, some people feel like TJ Watt hasn't been having a good season. I felt like he had a better game against Cincy. We saw a little bit of the spark. David, do you think that TJ's making his comeback? This is a resurgence, or do you think that Cincy game was a one-off?
Well, I just think they actually started switching him around when they kept pulling the TJ Watt effect, right? That 2 guys over there constantly getting chipped. The Steelers this game actually moved them around a little bit. So then that caused them to have to change things. And that's what they should have did in the Browns game. And they didn't do it at all. It was just strange. They did it in other games, but didn't do it in the game where the Browns are constantly making sure TJ doesn't have an impact. So they have to do it this game. Switch him around. You've got 3 guys now, 3 guys that can make an impact. Move them the fuck around. Like, do what you got to do to get TJ open to go after the quarterback. That's my thing. So is he warming up? Yes, if the Steelers are smart and utilize him better, or find a way to utilize him better. So, yeah, I think he is going to start warming up.
And it's another part where having the trio is going to be important, because I don't think teams will be able to sell out to the point where they did, because we saw more single teams on TJ last game, and that did not go well. So it's the same TJ where if you leave him one-on-one, he's most likely going to beat you. So that's why I don't think you can say that, it's just that teams are deciding it's more worthwhile to put half of our offense on TJ's side than have him wreck the game. But he might be warming up. I think that's a good way to say it.
John feels like the Steelers are happy playing a soft zone between the 20s and living and dying off splash plays.
And there's some definite truth to that, because they have been playing a lot of zones, mostly because, honestly, they can't play man. I mean, you could maybe let Joey, last year follow the best receiver, play him man, and play zone on everybody else. I mean, I don't think you can do that this year because he's struggling with the penalties.
Yep.
I don't think he's playing that much worse. I just think he's getting called for everything he does. Look, I kind of reject the notion that TJ's having a bad year. He's got 5 forced fumbles. He's got 9.5 sacks. Maybe by TJ alien standards, that's a bad year, but he's on pace. Yeah, he's on pace for 14, 15 sacks, which is, I guess because he's led the league in sacks 3 times. If he doesn't lead it, we'll think it's a bad year. But I really like the balance. TJ started 12 games. He's got 9.5 sacks. Herbig and Highsmith together have started 11 games. And in their 11 games combined, they have 7.5 sacks opposite TJ. If we have times during the game where, if they're all 3 healthy, where it's TJ and Herbig on the field, they're not going to double team and chip. They're going to play both those guys one-on-one. And I'm sorry, I'm comfortable with that. Let TJ come in and have them put 9 guys going after TJ and let Herbig run loose and wreck the game. Shockingly, especially with the limited time, you can make the argument that if Herbig had played every game, where would he be in sacks and forced fumbles? Because he's only 1 behind TJ in basically half the games. And I think that, now look, it's not that Hall of Fame Herbig is better than TJ. It's not that Alex is better than TJ. It's that those guys become so much more effective when you can't double team them and they get one-on-one. Think back to some of the great tandems, Lloyd and Green, Porter and Gildon. Those guys were great because they fed off of each other. And I think, even though it's a 3-man rotation, I think that's what's starting to happen. And if you tell me if I could sign up for the next 3 years with TJ 14 sacks and those guys combined 14 sacks on the other side, I'm in. I love that.
We got some Dante Jackson fans here. Relic thinks Dante Jackson's going to have his 6th interception. Steeler Nation agrees
it's
that he's
possible.
been our best corner.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree. Look, you're facing a quarterback that's his thing is throwing a lot of interceptions to match his touchdown passes. So absolutely the chances are high with this one.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
our resident Deontay Johnson fan isn't here, so yeah. I mean, how great does that trade look?
right.
Looks
Dante
amazing.
Jackson has been more lucky than good. So I don't know if I agree with that. I think
You
he's
got to catch it when they throw it to you.
Yeah.
How many guys do you see it bounces off their hands, bounces off their chest,
Right.
hits them in the helmet? I mean, he's catching them. So let's talk real quick about Joey Porter Jr. and going up here against, I'm assuming against Judy at least part of the time. What do you know? He was another one that, was just, man, flags left and right in that game. And frustrating to see. I think he had 6 flags. There was 4 of them were accepted. I've never seen somebody get 2 penalties like that on the same play, and they were both valid. I mean, it was a lot. So what do you expect to see coming from him this week, David?
So here's the thing. Judy had 235 yards receiving against Denver the other day, and then killed us on crucial 3rd and 4th downs. Joey Porter Jr., along with Minka and Elliott and Queen, cannot allow to get confused again in coverage. And JPJ can't give up these many penalties to help them constantly, because that's what he did against the Bengals. We can't see that this game. He's got to lock in, be smart. Whatever jersey color you're going to have, make sure your gloves match that color so they can't easily see that you're grabbing them or holding on to them or whatever.
Like your dad was a professional. Why do you not know this?
Right,
I know this.
Right. Like I don't understand that. But these are things that he's got to clean up, and because they just can't allow Joey to go off like he's been going off lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm the secondary coach and if Joey Porter comes to me and asks what's the chances of me covering Jerry Jeudy,
What are my chances?
Not good.
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say
Good and terrible.
yeah, I mean, look, Joey, if we're smart here, and John brings up a good point, we've been playing soft zones, maybe a little tighter zone, but I would not try to cover Judy one-on-one with Joey Porter here. I wouldn't try to cover him one-on-one with Dante Jackson. I wouldn't try to cover he just cooked Pat Surtain.
Yeah.
So we don't have anybody like that. So
No.
let the pressure get to Winston and hope you can force him into a mistake. And I kind of, the Dante Jackson lucky thing, I kind of see what they're saying too, because like the interception in the Browns game, Jameis threw that ball right to him. He had to catch it, but he missed his receiver terribly. So, which happens with Jameis Winston. So I think that you got to beat Jameis by pressuring him and forcing him to throw the ball up, which he will do, and beat him that way. I don't think you can. I don't think we should even try to say, okay, hey, we're going to take Judy out of the game, unless you're going to do it with 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah. I got a couple other topics I want to get to from the comments before we go to predictions. Big Poppy brought this up, and I saved it for when we were done with the defense. How big of a role will special teams be this week? And I think that's a really valid question, especially considering we've won 2 games this season by doing nothing but kicking field goals. What do you think, Zach, since you're back?
I think it'll be important because there's going to be at least 1 or 2 drives where we're going to stall when we probably score towards touchdowns. It's kind of our bugaboo right now, and I don't like accepting it, but I also don't like accepting the fact that we're going to do toss plays every single game, even if they don't work. That's just the reality of it right now. So yeah, it's going to be important because we'll see one of my predictions where I think we're going to have to rely on a couple of field goals here and there. So
Not worried about Boz. I mean, to be honest with you, unless it's blocked or a 65-yarder, I think he's pretty much automatic. What I am a little bit concerned about on special teams, and Tomlin brought this up during the week.
Yeah, I'd like that.
It's the coverage. It's especially the kick coverage. It's getting looser and looser. I mean, the beginning of the season, it seemed like we were good at sticking people inside the 25 if they chose to run. Then it started to be the 30, and now the Bengals got it out to the 35. I feel like the coverage is getting looser and looser. Not worried about Waitman. I don't think that 12-yard punt, unless it's a snowstorm, I have confidence that's an anomaly. I'm not worried about the kickers or the punters. I'm
I just
worried
don't want
about
to give Winston any extra field position.
Yeah, well, I'm also worried they could break one because how could the Browns potentially beat us? A kickoff return or a punt return.
Mhm.
Although our punt coverage has been better than our kick coverage.
Yeah, look, how big of a deal was it when Waitman shanked that ball and gave them the ball right there, right? Yeah, special teams will be important in this game. Any mistakes made by special teams will have an impact in this game because I personally think it's going to be within 7 points again. I honestly believe that.
Wow.
I just this is a division game. This is again their Super Bowl, so I'll get to that in a minute. But anyways,
I think that special teams always come into play in the AFC North. I just don't think you can take anything for granted. And when you start taking shit for granted, that's when you lose to the 3-8 Browns in the snow or whatever. Another comment that came up, Steeler Nation. Speaking of my heart, I mean, this could be like my alter ego, but it's not. The Hard Knocks Show will tell you why Tomlin will win Coach of the Year and his long playoff drought will end. I believe that this show is going to wake people up to Tomlin who don't understand him the way we do, and they're going to view him in this very favorable light, and I think it's going to help the Coach of the Year cause. Do you guys agree? Disagree?
I think this show highlights what he's great at, and I don't think any of us question how he handles people, how he talks to the team, how he motivates the team. Most of the criticism for Tomlin comes from some in-game decisions, and this show isn't going to address that because I guarantee you, if he makes one, it ain't making the final cut.
Right.
They're not going to talk about that. So, yeah, does the show maybe make Tomlin a bigger star nationally? I don't know how much bigger he can get, but yeah, it probably does. I listened to Mike Florio, though, who votes for Coach of the Year, and he made the point. He hates the award because the award goes to the guy whose team was supposed to suck, and they didn't suck, and they played good.
Wait, that's the Steelers.
Well,
that's the Steelers this year.
Did anybody really think the Steelers were going to suck?
Yes,
Colin
I mean,
Cowherd,
these articles about how we
a
were going to
bunch
be at the bottom of the AFC.
Yeah.
Mainstream media.
I can't think of any analyst I respect who thought they were going to finish below 500.
That you respect, that's a whole different
just because you respect them doesn't mean they don't have a vote. It was all the assholes that vote that do all of these shows and write for these newspapers that all said we were going to be at the bottom.
What she said. Yeah.
I can't. Cowherd is an exception because yes, I don't think he's still fully on board with the Steelers now, even though he seems like he is.
All right. One more thing. Let's talk about.
Can I talk about Tomlin real quick?
Yes. Please.
Okay, because I didn't get to do the Hard Knocks thing with you.
Sorry.
Real quick. So the thing about Tomlin is it brings me back to the military of people that have positional power and personal power. Positional power is where you're in a position to where you will make change because you'll have that impact that way because you have to. Personal power is the impact you have on people in their personal lives and in general. He demonstrated that. When I was watching that, I was in awe of it because of the way he talked to these men to motivate them and get them ready was amazing. Well, the way he embraced Wilson and kissed him on his head. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, I would run through a wall for that man. I would do anything for that man because of the way he talks. If you watch those other teams, not one fucking coach talked to their players like Tomlin talks to them. You had the one guy that was cussing a lot. You know, that's great. Hoorah, hurrah. But Tomlin literally spoke to them in a way that will just absolutely motivate you in an unbelievable way. The definition of leadership is getting your subordinates to believe in the same goals as you. And that is exactly what that man does with the way he leads on a positional leadership level and on a personal leadership level. Yeah. Unbelievable, amazing. The guy should do classes on leadership. Honestly.
It's unbelievable. We talked about it on the Hard Knocks show the other night. I mentioned that I love that not only does he do that, but he gets the guys under him to do that. Like that part where he's walking off the field with Cam at halftime, and he's like, we got to stop this run. You got to get your guys. You know what I mean? Like, so it's that too. It's the delegating. It's all of it. It's masterful. It's absolutely masterful. I've taken a lot of leadership, done a lot of leadership work, and yeah, he's masterful.
Oh, I've had to. So I just to see it, it's like poetry in motion. Just unreal to see what he was doing. And this guy hasn't done any leadership courses or that stuff that I am aware of. So just amazing thing to see, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, the Army. Okay. I was Air Force, buddy. So
And then Vaughn says, Tomlin's love of the game and his players is genuine. It shines through, but damn, let someone else run the clock and throw the challenge flags. Can't disagree with that.
Argument on that.
Yeah. All right. One more topic. So we all saw that Deontay Johnson got suspended. We sat here, was it just like 4 days ago, and argued some bullshit argument about bringing him back to the Steelers. And then you hear he refused to go in for the Eagles game, supposedly.
One of us argued.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's not even here to defend himself. Let me say, for those of you that are watching, not only did Dave argue that we should bring Deontay back, when I sent the text message yesterday that he was suspended for refusing to play, he said, I'll still take him. I just screenshot that to put it up on the show. So we got a few comments. Dave still doesn't like that trade. Yeah, he's still angry about it. So what did you guys think about this? Talk about the trade for Johnson. I mean, that looks like, I wrote an article on how that was a good trade like week 2, and it just seems to be the trade that keeps paying off. Do you guys have any thoughts about Deontay Johnson? Were you surprised? I was actually a little bit surprised that he refused to go on the field. That didn't seem like his usual MO.
I did wonder, because he came into the AFC North and they were a hated rival. And I did wonder, how that would feel, how they would gel together, him going into that environment with them now. And it looks like it did not go very well. I don't know if the schematics and everything are just way different than either the Panthers playbook or our playbook or what it is. But obviously there was issues in game, getting into the game. And then when he did, nothing happened. Guy might be a little bit of a head case. It's kind of reminiscent of Brown and the way he acted when we traded him to the Raiders, right? He was doing stupid shit and eventually got cut or traded or whatever they did. And then he got
They didn't even play a game, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the stuff that went on with Antonio Brown. It really does. So I look, we desperately need another wide receiver. But man, I'm not sure if that's the guy. But they're suspending him because they don't want to cut him and him go back to us or the Chiefs or another AFC rival. Could you imagine if Buffalo picked him up? Yeah. Could you imagine if Buffalo had him and Cooper together? Dude, plus Kincaid, that whole crew, what they're doing right now, not good. So they're doing this. It's actually smart by the Ravens. I hate to admit it. It's smart. You can just suspend him, do whatever, but don't you dare cut him and give him to one of your rivals.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, Florio floated a different theory. If the Ravens hold him through the end of the year, and you can prevent him from going places, but if the Ravens hold him through the end of the year, and then he goes and signs somewhere else, they get a compensatory draft pick. The Ravens are masters at getting compensatory draft picks.
Yeah,
so that's a good point.
Yeah, so there's no way they're letting him go.
And that's smart what they're doing. It really is.
Yeah.
But no, Leanne, you're right. I was genuinely surprised because my thing with Deontay Johnson was literally always just a talent thing. I'm like, we are paying you as a wide receiver 1, and at best you're a top tier wide receiver 2. I'm like, and stop acting. I was offended as a football fan and a Steeler fan that he kept acting like he was better than he was. And so I was just glad he was shipped off because I thought it was taking away from George Pickens being able to reach the ceiling he needed. But this, I didn't expect that, to refuse to go into a game.
Yeah,
that genuinely surprised me. It just confirmed number one, how good the trade was, that Omar Khan really knows what he's doing, and that we do not need him back.
Well, it made me wonder if there really was, look, it's happened with these guys we've gotten rid of, right? Antonio Brown, Juju settled down, but like Claypool, and it didn't pan out. So it always makes me wonder if the Steelers really do keep the lid on the pressure cooker, you know what I mean? And then these guys leave and there's other stuff that was going on that we didn't know about. And that's what I immediately thought with Johnson. Was there other stuff that we really didn't know about, and then he was more of a head case than we realized.
Tomlin picks these guys because he genuinely believes that he can reach them and change them and help them. Yeah. Some it works for a while. Some it might not. It's just one of those things. And I see that now. Now seeing Hard Knocks, I see exactly why.
Look, I made a career out of teaching those same guys the head cases when they're young kids and trying to get them to turn that around before they turn into Antonio Brown. And I'm telling you, all the energy you can invest, you'll reach some of them, and some of them, there's nothing you can do. I mean, there's just nothing you can do. John says DJ's a distraction in Baltimore right now. They don't need that, so they have so much playoff pressure on them. Shush! They need all the distractions they can get. I hope he's a big.
Is this Dave? Is this do we? Because I do we have a screenshot of who complimented Dave before? Because this might be the double agent again.
Right. All right, so let's get to some predictions. Bob, start us off. What's your prediction for the game this week?
I feel like they're going to right some of the wrongs. They're not going to start slowly. I do think that the Browns will do a better job than the Bengals do slowing them down. As long as Wilson's getting the ball out of his hands fast, it's a big line for this game. 6.5 is a lot for a division game, but I do feel like the Steelers are going to win. I think they're going to cover. I feel like this is going to come in somewhere in the 27-20 range. I could see. I'm going to go officially 30-21.
All right. How about you, David?
For me, I think Highsmith's return is huge against the Browns. He's well rested. He should be fresh. This guy is really good against the run, really good at sealing the edge, as opposed to Herbig, who's more of a guy that's just speed, gets by the left tackle and, fumble recovery. Also, Calvin Austin has really showed that he's an important now piece on this offense. Never thought I'd say that, but here we are.
Here we are.
With 5 touchdowns, which I think leads all receivers. So I think those two things, as long as he plays too, we know now what they're going to do to try to stop us. I think, like Bob said, we correct that now. I think it's still close. I still think it's going to be a divisional close game. Steelers win 27-21.
All right, Zach.
On the backdoor cover.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know mine was going to look like a blowout in comparison. I'm thinking 34-17. I think we allow the Browns to have an opening score drive, a touchdown, and the rest of the game will be a field goal until a garbage time touchdown that won't bring them close enough to do anything. I believe in this team. They've made believers of me enough to be able to go out on that limb.
I hope you're right, brother. I really do.
I'm with you, not quite to 34. I have 28-17. Very much like you. I think we'll hold them much better than we did last time. I agree with you, like to the letter, Zach, that we'll see some bullshit touchdown near the end of the game that'll be too late for them to do anything. It makes it look a little closer than it really was. We also have Dave's score prediction, and he was also a blowout. He had it at 27-10 Steelers. So all of us Steelers. Oh, here we go. We got another. This is Dave's burner.
Well, now we know it's his burner for sure.
The jig is up.
What are we doing, Beard?
Farmer's got us winning by 33. Those are good stuff. So we'll put the score predictions up on Twitter. You can vote for whoever you think is going to be the closest from the Sanctuary Gang. And then we'll talk about that when we come back on Monday to recap how the game went, the Steelers' big win. Let's hope. Guys, any final thoughts?
I'm going to go out on another limb here. I don't know why. Something about this game. I'm going to say TJ's going to have a multi-sack game.
Oh, I like that.
I'm willing to say that. I don't know what. You know what? We can see the beard from here.
Yeah.
He didn't give himself away this time by going, ooh, where's the handsome guy with the beard?
Yeah, right.
I'm going to say if Calvin Austin doesn't play, look for Ben Skoranek to have a big game.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that.
Warren. They need to let Warren go off.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to see Najee keep running. I hope he runs all up and down the fucking field. and gets
use
himself
his
the
power,
biggest ass
but
contract in the world.
use his power, but they got to blend it with Warren's speed. You got
I
to
agree.
get Warren more in there.
I
Let's see
agree.
Pat, please.
Oh, look at Vaughn making the bold prediction. Mike Williams gets a target this game.
Yeah, all
Let's
right.
But does he get a
Wow.
catch?
Right.
Oh,
Let's not get
Mike-
crazy here, Bob. All right, let's calm down.
Hey, so far, one
Oh.
target, one catch, one touchdown, right?
Yeah,
True.
it's pretty good.
Very
All
true.
right. If you've joined us today, we really appreciate it. We appreciate all of the commentary and all the contributions from you guys that are watching. If you're catching this late, we still want to hear from you. So drop us a comment in the comment section. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It definitely helps us out. You can follow all of us on social media. You see our handles on the screen. You can also follow the Steeler Sanctuary page and the Steeler Sanctuary podcast page on Twitter. And we're also on Blue Sky. We look forward to seeing you again on Monday for our recap show, and we'll see you then.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah.